Commander Vros Tarkin stood on the observation deck of the inevitable Dominance, his massive eight-limbed frame silhouetted against the viewport. The blue-white sphere of the primitive planet rotated slowly below. Earth, as the locals called it. What a ridiculous name. Naming your world after dirt? Typical of a species barely out of its evolutionary diapers. Commander, Lieutenant Drax addressed him from behind. The Council is growing impatient. They expected results 3 solar cycles ago. Bros didn't bother turning around. His subordinates didn't deserve eye contact until they proved themselves worthy of it. The Council can stuff their impatience into their breathing sacks. Quality intimidation takes time. But sir, nothing. You think this is my first conquest? My first subjugation? Vros spun around, his upper arms crossed while his lower ones rested on the ceremonial blade of ancestral conquest at his hip. When I conquered the Benzali, did I rush? No. When I decimated the Krell Confederation, did I hurry? Absolutely not. Patience is the difference between a temporary occupation and a permanent empire. Lieutenant Drax, still new to the Harvester's elite subjugation fleet, shifted uncomfortably. Of course, Commander. Your reputation precedes you across 17 star systems. Try 23, Vros corrected with a sneer. Now, what's the status on the demonstration sites? Drax consulted her neural tablet. We have selected 17 locations across their major population centers. The strike teams are prepped and awaiting your command. Excellent. And the message feeds? We have hacked into their primitive broadcast systems. Once the demonstration begins, every screen on this backwater rock will show our message. Vros turned back to the viewport, his 4 eyes narrowing with pleasure. Perfect. The humans think they are special, Drax. Did you know that? Out of all the species we have conquered, none have been so absurdly confident in their own importance. They write stories about how they defeat alien invaders. They imagine themselves as the heroes of the galaxy. He let out a wheezing laugh that sounded like metal being crushed. It's going to be so enjoyable to watch that confidence shatter. Sir, if I may ask, why not just obliterate their military capabilities? Our scans show they're centuries behind us technologically. Vros sighed dramatically. Have you learned nothing from your training? Total annihilation is inefficient. Dead species don't produce resources. Dead planets don't yield profits. The Council wants Earth intact and its population working. What we need is psychological dominance. Break their spirit, not their infrastructure. Lieutenant Drax nodded, making notes on her tablet. And that's where the demonstration comes in. Precisely. Vros clapped his upper hands together while his lower ones adjusted the ceremonial medals adorning his chest plate. We show them our power, make them realize resistance is futile, and establish ourselves as their new masters. It's Domination 101. The strike teams report they are in position, sir. A cruel smile spread across Vros's face, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. Commence the demonstration. Down on Earth, in the small town of Pineville, Tennessee, 10-year-old Elijah Cooper was riding his bike home from baseball practice. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the quiet suburban streets as he pedaled, his mitt hanging from the handlebars. Mom's gonna kill me for being late, he muttered to himself, pumping his legs faster. But Coach Jackson just wouldn't stop talking about that double play. He rounded the corner onto Maple Street and skidded to a halt. Something was wrong. Really wrong that a massive ship hovered above the park at the end of the street. Not airplane massive. Not even aircraft carrier massive. This thing was the size of several football fields, dark metallic with pulsing blue lights running along its underbelly. It hummed with energy that Elijah could feel in his fillings. Holy crap, he whispered, letting his bike fall to the ground. All around him, neighbors were coming out of their houses, pointing and staring. Some were taking videos with their phones that a beam of light shot from the bottom of the ship, and 7 figures materialized in the park. They were tall, at least 8 feet, with 4 arms and what looked like armor covering their bodies. Their heads were elongated, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. They carried weapons unlike anything Elijah had ever seen. Even in the video games, his parents didn't know he played point one of the aliens stepped forward and raised some kind of device. Suddenly, every phone, every tablet, every screen within sight flickered and changed to show the same image. A massive alien face, different from those in the park. Older, with scars and decorations. People of Earth. The face began in perfect, if oddly accented English. I am Commander Vros Tarkin of the Harvester Dominion. Your planet now belongs to us. Your resources are ours to take. Your people are ours to command. This is not a negotiation. This is not an invasion. This is an acquisition. Elijah stood frozen, his heart hammering in his chest. This couldn't be real. This was the stuff of movies, not real life in Pineville. To demonstrate our seriousness, the alien commander continued, we are conducting simultaneous demonstrations across your world. Resistance is not just futile, it is suicidal. Observe, the aliens in the park raised their weapons. People started screaming, running. Mrs. Hensley from next door grabbed her toddler and sprinted toward her house. Mr. Patel from the convenience store dropped to his knees, hands raised. Elijah should have run. He knew he should have run, but his legs wouldn't move. One of the aliens pointed directly at him. Their eyes met across the distance, and then everything went wrong. On the bridge of the inevitable dominance, Vros watched the feeds from the demonstration teams with growing satisfaction. Cities across the primitive planet were experiencing synchronized displays of harvester power. Panic was spreading exactly as planned. Sir, Drax called out, her voice strangely tight. We have a situation in Demonstration Zone 12. Vros waved a dismissive hand. Handle it, Lieutenant. I'm enjoying Paris at the moment. The humans are practically soiling themselves. Sir, I really think you should what? Vros snapped, turning away from the main view screen. What could possibly be so important that you interrupt my moment of triumph? Drax swallowed hard. One of our demonstration teams has killed a human juvenile. The bridge fell silent. Even the automated systems seemed to pause. They did what? Vros asked, his voice dangerously quiet. It appears to be accidental, sir. The juvenile didn't flee when the others did. Strike Team Leader Mock states that the human child appeared to challenge him, making direct eye contact. And so he killed it. Vros roared, slamming all four fists onto the command console. Is Mock's brain damaged? Did he sleep through the entire strategic briefing? We never kill the young ones during initial subjugation. Never. Drax flinched. Sir, it gets worse. The incident was broadcast live by the humans' communication networks. Billions saw it happen. Vros felt a cold dread seep into his bones. In his centuries of conquest, he had learned one universal truth. Species could endure almost any hardship, any cruelty, any subjugation, but harm their offspring, and something primal awakened. Something dangerous. We call all demonstration teams. Immediately, his voice was suddenly calm, which terrified his crew more than his shouting. And give me a direct line of Mox. He has exactly 30 seconds to explain why I shouldn't eject him into space personally. General Catherine Steele Garrison stared at the screens in the Pentagon War Room, her face a mask of controlled fury. The footage from Pineville played on a loop, the alien pointing its weapon, the flash of light, and Elijah Cooper's small body crumpling to the ground. Madam Secretary, she addressed the grim-faced woman at the head of the table. Permission to execute contingency Prometheus. Defense Secretary Rivera looked around the room at the assembled military leadership. You're talking about untested technology, General. With respect, Madam Secretary, it's been tested, just not deployed. Garrison stood straighter. Dr. Thorne's gravitational disruption system was designed exactly for this scenario. We might not have their level of firepower, but we could prevent those ships from maintaining stable orbit and bring them crashing down on civilian populations? I don't think so. Admiral Chen interjected. Not if we coordinate with Skyspear. Garrison pulled up additional schematics on the main display. The railgun platforms can target their propulsion systems once their stabilizers are compromised. We force controlled crashes into unpopulated areas. Secretary Rivera rubbed her temples. This is assuming their ships are vulnerable to our weapons at all. They killed a child, Madam Secretary, Garrison said quietly. on live television. A 10-year-old boy who was just coming home from baseball practice. If we don't respond with everything we have got, what message does that send? Not just to these harvesters, but to our own people. The room fell silent as the footage continued to play. Elijah Cooper's face, frozen in surprise rather than fear, just before the alien weapon discharged. Very well, Secretary Rivera finally said. Initiate Prometheus. God help us all. Rose paced the command deck, his ceremonial blade now drawn and gripped tightly in one of his lower hands. Tell me, Drax, what is happening on the surface? How the demonstrations successfully cowed them. Drax hesitated, and that hesitation told Rose everything he needed to know. Lieutenant, he growled, I asked you a question. Sir, we're detecting increased military activity worldwide. Their armed forces are mobilizing. Their communication channels are filled with unusual chatter. Define unusual, Rose demanded. Well, sir, they're not panicking. At least, their military isn't. There's a lot of coded communication, but our linguists have deciphered some of it. They keep referencing something called Prometheus and Sky Spear. Rose narrowed his eyes. Weapons systems. Unknown, sir. But there's something else. Drax brought up a holographic display. We are intercepting civilian communications as well. They are different than what our cultural analysis predicted. How so? The humans aren't cowering, sir. They are enraged, particularly about the juvenile casualty. Their social information networks are flooded with the child's image. They are calling for blood. Our blood. Rose dismissed this with a wave. Primitive emotional response. It will pass once they realize the futility of resistance. A junior officer rushed onto the bridge, snapping to attention. Commander, we have lost contact with the Harbinger. What? Rose whirled around. That's impossible. The Harbinger is our most advanced scout ship. Nevertheless, sir, all communications ceased approximately 3 minutes ago. Last telemetry showed it in low orbit over what the humans call North America. Rose felt his confidence waver for the first time. Scan the area. Find that ship. Already done, sir. The officer swallowed hard. There's nothing to find. The Harbinger is gone. Dr. Layla Thorne watched from the underground bunker as her life's work finally proved its worth. On the monitors, the gravitational disruption field successfully destabilized the alien scout ship's ability to maintain orbit. As it tumbled, the Sky Spear railguns delivered the coup de grace. Hypersonic projectiles tearing through what appeared to be the vessel's propulsion system. Target neutralized, announced the weapons officer, though there was no celebration in his voice. Everyone remembered the boy from Tennessee. Crash site, General Garrison asked. Nevada Desert, Mom. Impact zone is secure. Recovery teams en route. Dr. Thorne studied the readings from the encounter. The disruptors worked better than expected, but they are still limited by power constraints. We can't hit the main ship. Not yet. Garrison nodded. One step at a time, Doctor. We have drawn first blood. Now we need to press the advantage before they realize what we have done. Thorne looked up at the general. You realize this means war, don't you? Not the kind of subjugation they planned, but actual war. They decided that when they killed Elijah Cooper. Garrison replied grimly. We're just making sure they understand what that means. Back on the inevitable dominance, chaos had erupted. Reports were flooding in. More ships lost, human military activity intensifying globally, and most disturbingly, evidence that the primitives somehow possessed technology capable of bringing down harvester vessels. This is impossible, Rose raged, hurling a datapad across the bridge. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They shouldn't be able to touch our ships, let alone destroy them. Drax stared at the incoming data with growing alarm. Sir, we are detecting energy signatures unlike anything in our records. Whatever they are using, it's not in our defensive parameters. The council must be informed, Rose muttered, more to himself than to his lieutenant. This subjugation is becoming complicated. Sir, Drax said quietly, perhaps we should consider withdrawing the demonstration teams. Regroup and reassess. Rose turned slowly, his face a mask of outrage. Withdraw? Withdraw? The harvesters do not withdraw. We conquer. We dominate. The ship shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. What was that? Rose demanded. Unknown energy signature, sir. It just brushed against our gravitational field. For a moment, our stabilizers couldn't compensate. Rose stared at the view screen, watching as Earth continued its innocent rotation below. Something had changed. The humans weren't behaving like any species they'd conquered before. They weren't running. They weren't negotiating. They were fighting back. And somehow, impossibly, they were winning. Sir, Drax said, her voice now trembling slightly. We are receiving a transmission. From Earth. Put it through. Rose ordered, straightening his posture. The screen flickered, and a human female appeared. She wore what appeared to be a military uniform adorned with various insignia. This is General Catherine Garrison of Earth's United Defense Command. You killed one of our children. Consider what follows to be our response. The transmission cut off. A moment later, the ship shuddered again, harder this time, and Vros Tarkin, conqueror of 23 star systems, felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. Status report. Now, Vros bellowed as the inevitable dominance rocked from another impact. Warning lights bathed the command bridge in crimson. 3 more scout ships lost, sir, Drax reported, her 4 hands flying over multiple control interfaces. And we are detecting unusual energy signatures approaching our position. The humans have deployed some kind of orbital platforms. Impossible, Vros muttered, though with considerably less conviction than before. Their space technology is primitive. They barely have a functioning orbital station. Engineer Krevlox approached, ducking his head in deference despite the crisis. Commander, I have analyzed the energy signature that disrupted our gravitational stabilizers. It's ingenious, actually. The humans are using focused gravitational waves to create micro-distortions in our field generators. In basic terms, Krevlox, Rose snapped. They are tickling our gravity drives, sir. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to make precision orbital maneuvers nearly impossible. Rose stared at the tactical display. 17 human nations had launched military responses simultaneously. Even more alarming, they seemed to be coordinating perfectly, a planetary defense coalition that had materialized out of nowhere. How, he whispered. Our intelligence suggested they were divided, constantly squabbling among themselves. Drax looked up from her console. Sir, I have been reviewing their transmission patterns. The death of the juvenile, his name was Elijah Cooper, interrupted a junior communications officer, then immediately shrank back when everyone turned to stare at him. What did you say? Rose asked dangerously. The officer swallowed. I have been monitoring their broadcasts, sir. The human child's name was Elijah Cooper. He was 10 solar cycles old, played a game called baseball. His image is everywhere on their information networks. As I was saying, Drax continued carefully, the death of Cooper appears to have united them. Their previous political divisions evaporated within hours. A violent explosion rocked the ship. This time, damage alarm screamed. Direct hit on our port shield array, shouted the defensive systems operator. That's impossible. Rose roared, slamming his fist down. Nothing they have should penetrate our defensive screens. Engineer Krevlox checked the readings. They're using our own gravity distortion against us, sir. They created a localized weakness, then fired some kind of kinetic projectile through the gap. Vros straightened up, adjusting his commander insignia. Send the Dreadnought Squadron. Level their major cities. Let's see how unified they remain when their populations are being vaporized. Dead silence fell across the bridge. Eventually, Drax cleared her throat. Commander, with respect, that would violate the Council's direct orders. Earth is to be conquered intact, not destroyed. Do you see what's happening, Lieutenant? Rose gestured wildly at the tactical displays. This subjugation has failed. The only option now is to crush them completely and explain to the Council later. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We are receiving a direct transmission from High Council Matriarch Zilvra. Rose froze. The supreme leader of the Harvester Dominion rarely communicated directly with field commanders. When she did, it was never good news. "Put her through," he ordered, hastily straightening his uniform. The view screen flickered, and the ancient, weathered face of matriarch Zilvra appeared. Her 6 eyes, 2 more than regular harvesters, a mark of her genetic superiority, narrowed as she observed the chaos on the bridge. "Commander Tarkin," she said, her voice like grinding stone, "I understand there have been complications." Vrose bowed deeply. "A minor setback, Exalted One. The humans are proving somewhat more resourceful than anticipated, but I assure you, you killed one of their children," she cut him off. "During a demonstration. Not I personally, Exalted One. A subordinate who will be severely punished. But yes, regrettably, a juvenile casualty occurred." Zilver's expression didn't change, but the temperature on the bridge seemed to drop several degrees. "In 9,000 years of conquest, Commander, how many species have we subjugated?" 112, Exalted One. "And in those 9 millennia, what is our most fundamental rule when dealing with new acquisitions?" Rose swallowed. "Never harm a young during initial contact." "And why is that, Commander?" Because it provokes irrational resistance instead of practical surrender." Matriarch Zilvra leaned forward, her ancient face filling the screen. "The Council has reviewed your situation. Your mission parameters have changed. You are to withdraw all forces immediately." "Withdraw." Rose couldn't hide his shock. "But Exalted One, Earth's resources are not worth the cost of acquisition," she finished for him. "These humans, they're different. Our predictive models failed to account for their response. The Risk Assessment Department projects casualties at 30% of deployed forces if we continue." 30%, Rose whispered. "The highest casualty rate in any previous conquest had been 7%. Your new orders are simple. Pull back all remaining demonstration teams. Return to minimum safe distance. The Council is sending diplomat Thex to attempt negotiations." Negotiations? Rose couldn't believe what he was hearing. "We don't negotiate with acquisition targets. We dominate them." Matriarch Zilvra's 6 eyes blinked slowly, one pair at a time. "We do now." Dr. Layla Thorne stared at the data flooding her screens in the underground command center. "They are retreating," she announced, though her voice held no triumph. "All remaining alien craft are breaking orbit." General Garrison frowned. "Why? We have bloodied their nose, sure, but we have barely started the real fight." "Maybe that's exactly why," Secretary Rivera suggested. "They expected submission, not resistance. Certainly not effective resistance." On the main view screen, footage from around the world showed the aftermath of humanity's first battle with an alien force. Smoking craters where Harvester Scout ships had been brought down. Military personnel swarming over crash sites, securing alien technology. Civilians gathering in massive demonstrations, many holding images of Elijah Cooper. "What do we tell the public?" Admiral Winters asked. "That we won. We tell them the truth," Garrison replied. "Round 1 goes to humanity, but this isn't over. Not by a long shot." Dr. Thorne's computer chimed with an alert. "General, we are detecting a new ship entering the system. Much larger than anything we have seen so far." "Reinforcements?" Rivera asked tensely. "I don't think so," Thorne replied, studying the readings. "Its energy signature is different, less militarized." Garrison's secure phone buzzed. She listened for several seconds, then addressed the room. "NASA confirms the new vessel is broadcasting on all frequencies. They are requesting diplomatic contact." A stunned silence fell over the command center. "They want to talk?" Admiral Winters finally asked. "After everything that's happened?" "Apparently," Garrison said, "killing one of their ships wasn't enough to make them leave. Killing one of our children was enough to make them negotiate." 2 days later, in a neutral location of international waters off the coast of Hawaii, humanity received its first official diplomatic delegation from another world. The meeting took place on the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier, surrounded by the combined naval might of 7 nations. Diplomat Thex, a slender harvester with ornate silver markings on his exoskeleton, stood before the assembled human representatives. Unlike Commander Rose, he had only 2 arms, an evolutionary throwback among his species that had ironically made him better suited to understanding primitive races. On behalf of the Harvester Dominion, he began his translator device, converting his clicking speech into flawless English. I extend formal apologies for the incident in your settlement of Pineville. The death of the juvenile Elijah Cooper was unauthorized and contradicts our conquest protocols. Secretary Rivera, representing Earth's hastily assembled Unified Response Council, didn't bother hiding her disgust. You are apologizing for violating your conquest protocols? Not for attempting to subjugate our planet, not for killing an innocent child. Thex tilted his head, genuinely confused. The subjugation attempt was a standard acquisition procedure, nothing to apologize for. The killing of the juvenile was the error. General Garrison leaned forward. Let me make something abundantly clear, Diplomat Thex. Earth is not available for acquisition. Not now, not ever. Any further attempts will be met with the full force of our unified military response. Your species continues to confound our behavioral models, Thex noted with what seemed like professional curiosity. Most species, when faced with a technologically superior force, calculate the odds and surrender to minimize casualties. We are not most species, Admiral Winters growled. Indeed, Thex agreed. Your unexpected technological capabilities aside, your behavioral response to the death of a single juvenile is unprecedented in our records. 9,000 years of conquest, and we have never encountered a species willing to risk planetary devastation over one child. Then you have never encountered humans before, Rivera stated flatly, but Thex's 4 eyes blinked sequentially. The High Council has authorized me to offer reparations for the Cooper juvenile. We can provide advanced medical technology, energy production systems, or rare minerals from no deal, Garrison interrupted. You can't put a price on a human life, especially not a child's. Then what do you want? Thex asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Rivera exchanged glances with her colleagues before responding. First, formal recognition of Earth's sovereignty and removal of our planet from your acquisition list. This can be arranged, Thex said after a moment's hesitation, though highly irregular. Second, all harvester ships will maintain a minimum distance of 1 astronomical unit from Earth, with exceptions granted only through formal diplomatic channels. Acceptable. Third, Rivera continued, technology exchange. Defensive systems only. We have proven we could take down your ships. Now help us ensure we never have to do it again. Thex hesitated longer this time. The Council will be reluctant, but recent events suggest your species will develop such technology independently regardless. I believe I can persuade them this is the preferable option. And finally, Rivera said, her voice hardening, justice for Elijah Cooper. Thex's posture changed subtly. What form of justice? The individual responsible for firing the weapon will stand trial according to human law. Impossible, Thex responded immediately. No harvester has ever been subjected to the legal system of another species. Then no deal, Garrison stated, starting to rise. Wait, Thex held up a hand. Strike Team Leader Mox has already been executed for violating conquest protocols. Is this insufficient? The human representatives exchanged troubled glances. We don't execute prisoners, Admiral Winters explained. Our justice system focuses on fair trials, evidence, and proportional sentencing. Fascinating, Thex noted, genuinely interested. You refuse to accept compensation for the juvenile. You protect even those who harm your young from execution. Yet you united your entire planet to wage war when the juvenile was killed. Your species is paradoxical. We are complicated, Rivera acknowledged. Get used to it if you want diplomatic relations. Thex considered this. The Council believed your world would be an easy acquisition. Low resistance, high yield. They were catastrophically incorrect. I believe there is much we can learn from each other. Starting with this, Garrison said, sliding a tablet across the table. The Elijah Cooper Accord. A formal treaty establishing Earth's independence and our terms for future relations with the Harvester Dominion. Fex examined the document. Name for the juvenile? Yes, Rivera confirmed. So that neither side ever forgets what happens when you threaten a human child. 1 year later, Commander Vros Tarkin stood before the High Council chamber, stripped of his rank insignia and ceremonial blade. His once gleaming armor was dull, the medals removed from his chest plate. Former Commander Tarkin. Matriarch Zilvra addressed him, her ancient voice echoing in a vast chamber. You stand accused of tactical incompetence leading to the loss of 17 vessels and 112 harvester lives. How do you plead? Rose kept his head high. The mission was compromised by Strike Team Leader Mox's actions, Exalted One. The human response was unpredictable. Was it? One of the junior council members activated a holographic display. Your mission briefing explicitly stated, humans display unusual attachment to their young. Juvenile casualties will likely trigger extreme responses. Did you emphasize this point in your operational briefing? I mentioned it, Rose admitted reluctantly. Once, Zilver noted, in passing, between discussions of resource extraction schedules and subjugation timetables. Your negligence cost us dearly. They are primitives, Rose exclaimed, desperation creeping into his voice. How was I to know they possessed gravity disruption technology? That they could unify globally within hours? That they would choose war over practical surrender? The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Matriarch Zilver spoke. Your failure was not technological, Rose Tarkin. It was one of imagination. You failed to understand a fundamental truth that our best diplomats and xenopsychologists are now studying intensively. Humans value their offspring above all rational considerations. She gestured, and another holographic display activated, showing images from Earth. Humans still placing flowers at memorials for Elijah Cooper. The massive space defense system being constructed in Earth orbit with Harvester technical assistance. Diplomat Fex meeting with human leaders. The Elijah Cooper Accord has transformed our understanding of conquest, Zilver continued. For 9 millennia, we have subjugated species through fear and superior force. One human child has forced us to consider alternatives to conquest. Rose couldn't hide his shock. The Dominion the Dominion adapts, Zilver cut him off. As all successful empires must. The humans have demonstrated that some species cannot be conquered through traditional means. The costs are too high, the resistance too fierce. And my punishment? Rose asked, already knowing the answer. You will not be executed, Zilver said, surprising him. Instead, you will serve as ambassador to Earth. Ambassador? Rose was horrified. Living among the primitives? This is worse than execution. Precisely. Zilver's 6 eyes glinted with what might have been amusement. You will learn what Diplomat Fex has already discovered, that there are species in this galaxy who value a single child's life more than surrender, more than safety, more than rational self-interest. She leaned forward on her ancient throne. The humans have a saying, former commander, one that our linguists find particularly illuminating. They meant to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Rose didn't understand the primitive metaphor, but he recognized the shift in power it represented. For the first time in the Dominion's history, a conquest had failed, not through superior technology or numbers, but because the Harvesters had broken one fundamental rule. They had killed a human child. And in doing so, they had awakened something more dangerous than any weapon system. They had awakened a species willing to risk everything to ensure it never happened again. 0.5 years after the failed invasion, a monument stood in the park in Pineville, Tennessee. A simple bronze statue of a boy with a baseball mitt, eternally frozen in that moment before everything changed. The plaque read simply, Elijah Cooper 2015 to 2025, the child who saved the world by reminding us what we stand for. Around the monument stood a delegation of humans and harvesters, the latter noticeably uncomfortable in Earth's gravity. Among them was Drax, now a cultural attaché to the Harvester Embassy. I still don't understand, she confessed to Dr. Layla Thorne, who had since become Earth's leading expert on harvester technology. 112 species conquered, all who eventually calculated that surrender was preferable to annihilation. Why were humans different? Dr. Thorne watched as Elijah's parents placed fresh flowers at the base of the statue, as they did every week. Because we don't calculate when it comes to our children, she explained. There's no equation, no rational analysis. When you threatened our children, you didn't face our logic. You faced our love. And love doesn't surrender. Drax's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she processed this alien concept. The Council now uses Earth as a case study for all conquest planners. The Cooper Principle, they call it. Some species value their young beyond rational measurement. These species must never be approached through standard conquest protocols. You could just stop conquering altogether, Thorne suggested dryly. Evolution is slow, Drax responded, but there was a hint of something new in her voice. Something that almost sounded like humor. But the Cooper Principle is spreading. For planned subjugations have been converted to diplomatic missions in the past year alone. As they spoke, a small group of human children approached the Harvester delegation cautiously, curious about the 8-limbed aliens. The Harvesters stiffened nervously, highly aware of the historical significance of this interaction. One brave little girl stepped forward, offering a hand-drawn picture to Drax. "This is for you," she said. "It's all of us together." Drax accepted the crude drawing with ceremonial dignity, as if receiving a state gift. The picture showed stick-figure humans and multi-limbed aliens holding hands beneath a yellow sun. "Thank you, juvenile." Drax caught herself. "What is your designation?" "I'm Sophia," the girl replied. "And I'm not a juvenile, I'm a kid." "Thank you, Sophia Kid," Drax corrected solemnly a doctor. Thorne suppressed a smile as she watched the interaction. The diplomatic reports were correct. The Harvesters were learning. Slowly, awkwardly, but learning nonetheless. Later, as the delegation prepared to depart, Thorne noticed Drax lingering at Elijah's monument, studying it intently. "Something wrong?" she asked the Harvester diplomat. "Your species names everything," Drax observed. "Your planets, your offspring, even your conflicts. We have had 9 millennia of conquest, and we never named a single campaign. They were simply acquisitions. And now we have the Cooper Principle," Drax said quietly. "Named for a small human who never surrendered, who stood his ground when others ran. I find myself wondering what might have happened had Strike Team Leader Mox simply not fired. The universe would be very different," Thorne agreed. Drax touched the bronze figure with one long finger, a gesture of profound respect in Harvester culture. "Your kind frightens the Council, Dr. Thorne. Not your weapons or your technology, though both are more advanced than we anticipated. What frightens them is your irrationality, your willingness to risk everything for principles. Is that why you came today? To study the irrational humans?" "No," Drax admitted. "I came to see the memorial of the one who changed the course of an empire. In Harvester history, only great military leaders and council matriarchs are commemorated. Never the conquered, never the casualties." She looked around at the peaceful park, at children playing not far from where Elijah Cooper had fallen. "Perhaps we've been conquering for so long, we forgot to ask why." Drax's voice was so quiet Thorne barely heard her. Perhaps the Cooper Principle applies not just to subjugation protocols, but to conquest itself. As they walked away from the monument, a cool breeze scattered leaves across the park where once an alien weapon had fired, where a boy had stood his ground, and where in a single moment humanity had shown the stars what it was made of. Not advanced technology, not military might, just the simple, unbending principle that threatened children found defenders. Always that IT was the principle that had driven humanity from cave-dwelling primates to a space-faring civilization. The principle that had, in the end, defeated an empire that spanned 23 star systems. The principle that some things were worth any cost to protect. Some lessons, it seemed, had to be taught the hard way, even to conquerors of worlds. Or perhaps especially to them.